This episode of the Old Dogs REI Network is brought to you by Mino Studio. Mino Studio is a pre- and post-production facility for all of your audio needs. Mino Studio's founder is an accredited audio engineer with top 40 and indie album credits. With over 30 years of music industry experience, Mino Studio can take your podcast from idea to reality. Contact Mino Studio at minostudio777@gmail.com for more information. That's Mino Studio spelled M-E-N-O, minostudio777@gmail.com.
In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manacero.
It's the Old Dogs REI Network. I'm your host, Bill Manacero, and this is the show where 50-plussers and anyone else who wants to join us get solid, no sales pitch real estate investing advice to help generate real cash flow. This podcast airs twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays, and if you aren't already a subscriber, go to iTunes, type in Old Dog, spelled D-A-W-G, find our podcast, and subscribe. Well, today I'm here with a really interesting guy and a real estate investor. His name is Rod Khleif, and he is the Director of Investments at REM Real Estate and Management, where he uses his expertise to guide the firm in identifying and acquiring undervalued apartment complexes and mobile home parks. Rod has personally owned more than 2,000 single-family homes in multiple apartment communities. Before being named as a director at REM Real Estate Management, he was the president of Gulf Coast Management, Inc., a real estate property management firm in the Sarasota, Florida area. Rod has also built several multi-million-dollar businesses and has dedicated himself as a community philanthropist, and this is the part I love, forming and leading the Tiny Hands Foundation, which has benefited more than 40,000 underprivileged children. Well, Rod, welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network.
Hey, thanks, Bill. I really appreciate you having me on, and thank you for the little blurb about the Tiny Hands Foundation. That's something dear to my heart, and I enjoy. And I love, in reading your bio, the things that you've done in Haiti. So I'm going to enjoy, hopefully, having some conversation about that later on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. As those who have listened to the show know, giving back, we feel, is just a really important part of your success in real estate investing. So I am looking forward to that.
Success in anything, Bill. Honestly, that's my opinion. Life is about giving back. But anyway, we'll talk about that.
I love it. I love it. Well, great. Well, Rod, I didn't mention in your bio that you also have a very successful podcast, and I didn't know why that wasn't in the bio. I just realized it as I read it. I go, oh yeah, and he also has an amazing podcast that I would recommend people listening to. What is the exact name of the podcast?
Well, thank you for mentioning it, Bill. It's called the Lifetime Cash Flow through Real Estate Investing podcast, and it's geared towards multifamily, and you'll find out why after you hear a little bit more of my story. But I'm really loving it. We're having a lot of fun. Very well ranked right now, and it's funny. I was just looking at yours, and I see that we were talking just a minute ago about you being in Haiti, and I just interviewed a guy named Frank McKinney, and I don't know if you ever crossed paths with him. He's an author, best-selling author, and I know and the reason I wanted to get him on my show was he's built homes for $10,000 10,000 people in Haiti, and I just I saw the connection there, and you guys both have huge hearts, and so I wanted to throw that in, but anyway, yes, thank you for bringing up my podcast. It's a lot of fun. I love it, like I'm sure you do.
Great. Well, I kind of gave an overview of your background, Rod, but maybe you can just kind of elaborate on how you got involved in real estate investing and
Sure.
your story.
Sure. Well, I immigrated when I was 6 from Holland, so I'm an immigrant, and didn't grow up with much. Wore Goodwill clothes, and I remember my mom had to buy secondhand bread, and we had a good life and a lot of love, but really not a lot of material things. And my mom was kind of an entrepreneur in her own right. She babysat kids, and with her babysitting money, she bought the house across the street, and I remember she paid it in the $30,000 range, and although I hate math, I really do, and I did well with it in school. When I graduated from high school, it was worth in the 50s, and I was able to do that calculation. And so I got my real estate license when I turned 18 in Colorado. I was in Denver, and I you were able to get your broker's license, believe it or not, without any experience. So I turned 18, got my broker's license, and thought I was going to get rich, put a bus bench with my picture on it down at the end of the street, which only did one thing and made my mom proud, didn't give me any business, but didn't know what I was doing. Made 10 grand my first year and maybe a little more than that my second year. But then my third year, I got confidence and actually started buying real estate and made over 100,000. And so I realized that I love real estate, and I would tell your listeners, those of you that are thinking about getting involved in an investment capacity or an acquisition capacity. So I quickly realized I loved real estate and ultimately ended up buying 500 houses in Denver. And just on a buy and hold strategy, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody, and I'll tell you why.
You just decided to buy 500 houses? Okay, come on. That's like huge.
Everybody had just gotten their butts kicked in Denver, and so all the investors had gotten hurt, just like what happened in '08. And so, there were fantastic deals, and I started buying and just bought like crazy, ended up with 500 of them. Then I went to Memphis and bought a couple hundred there. And regret that move, actually, but then ended up buying over 1,300 in Florida. And the reason my podcast is about multifamily instead of single family, because certainly I have credibility in the single family space, is when '08 hit, I had some apartment complexes and I had 800 houses, and I really got my butt kicked on the houses. The values plummeted. The rents didn't really drop, but because the taxes and insurance are so high here in Florida, and the caliber of houses that I had fairly high turnover, they really didn't cash flow that great, even though I was at a great loan to value. So I really got my rear end handed to me in '08 with my single families. But what I noticed was my apartment complexes did just fine. And so I really, I'm an advocate for buying multifamily instead of single family because of my own personal experience. And, and a lot of, there are a lot of factors besides the fact that, that I didn't do well through that '08 crisis. Single family homes are much more management intensive. They're much more difficult. I mean, I had houses 2 hours in each direction from Sarasota. I had like 2 hours north and 2 hours south, and it's a real challenge when you have to lease properties that far away, and when you have to schedule maintenance for properties that far away. Because I had my own in-house maintenance staff. I had my own property management company, still do actually, and believe in self-management. But it's very challenging because like in an apartment complex or even a plex like 4-plex, 8-plex, 10-plex. Typically, a lot of the systems are similar. The HVAC, the electrical, the appliances, they're similar so that when somebody goes to repair them, it's much easier than going to individual houses where everything's different. That coupled with them having to go to the house, figure out what was wrong, and then go to to Lowe's or Home Depot and pick things up and bring it back. What could have been a very simple routine maintenance situation typically ended up being a big production. So again, there are a lot of reasons why I advocate for multifamily. The management is one of them, and the leasing is another. Coordinating the maintenance is another, and frankly, I believe, I've interviewed some very, very wealthy real estate investors. One of them has 35,000 apartment units, and these guys study macroeconomics, and they all say a contraction is coming. And so, I would rather be, because I went through what I went through. I call it a seminar. It was a very expensive seminar, but because of what I went through, I'm a big advocate for multifamily.
Wow, that's an amazing story, Rod. Just out of curiosity, when you buy that many houses, now are you buying homes in bulk, or do you just have?
No. This was from individual homeowners, and I'm just very good with systems, and I incorporate systems even now into my multifamily business in the marketing and the acquisition side in identifying deals, but it's really about systems. And again, I don't recommend you do what I did. And listen, there's nothing wrong with houses. Honestly, I think if I'd had my inventory, I'd sold my inventory in Denver to buy in Florida. If I had my inventory in Denver, it probably would have done okay through the crisis. It is relevant to where you buy, but there's so many advantages to doing multifamily versus single family. For example, if you buy a house and it's empty, you're 100% vacant. Versus, if you even buy just a duplex and you've got an empty unit, you're only 50% vacant. And very often, if you're buying right and you buy a duplex, a fourplex, or 10 to 15 units, you can sustain having one or more units empty. Again, this is me having gone through what I went through talking here, but really, what many people don't realize is that it takes as much time, and sometimes really less time, to buy a multifamily unit as it does to buy a single-family house. And it doesn't take necessarily more money, particularly if you syndicate and you bring in partners. But it's really it may seem more complex and more intimidating to your listeners, but those of you that are listening that are thinking about investing in real estate, I will tell you, take a hard look at multifamily versus single family, just for the longevity, the safety, the ease of management. I know your listeners are long a tooth like me, and you don't need the management hassles that I went through with 800 houses here in Florida and 2,000 over my career. It's much, much easier and less brain damage if you've got, a lot of your units in one location, or just a handful of locations versus the way that I did it.
It's so funny you say that, because this is one of the big motivations I had as well. Is there are just too many folks out there right now that are predicting that there will be a real major market adjustment. Some saying, dropping down to 6, maybe even dropping down to 3,000.
Right.
And I think like you do that. When you have the multifamily, you have a lot more flexibility, and you can lower rates, rental rates. If you do have the vacancies, if you've bought right and set yourself up right, really shouldn't feel too much of a bite there.
Well, I'll tell you, even through 2008, rents didn't contract that much, but people did. People moved in together. A lot of people lost their homes, obviously, but really, the safety is in the fact that you can sustain some vacancies. And one other thing that I'll mention to you, and I know that some of the people listening to your show may be thinking about flipping. I mean, there's a gazillion flip podcasters on there, and there's a lot of people, gurus, that talk about getting rich with flipping houses or wholesaling houses or all of that. But, there's some inherent risks with that business model through a contraction, some big risks, because if you're going to buy and flip houses, particularly if you're in the higher priced houses. Now, if you're buying and flipping low priced houses, you're probably going to be okay as long as you have a second exit strategy, and that typically would be renting the property if the market contracts. Because when it contracts, the first thing that happens is the banks tighten up. And so it's very, very difficult to sell anything. And so, if you're a flipper, that's going to hugely impact your business. And so the guys that really got hurt, the flippers, were the ones that were in the expensive properties that they couldn't rent, or they had debt that was short term, because, that's a lot of guys that do that use. And that's where you get hurt. So, and I'll be candid, and I know that if you're a flipper or you're buying and selling, every January 1st, you go back to work again. But if you're out there and you're an investor like me and you buy some multifamily properties, at some point, first of all, it's much easier to manage, but at some point, you really don't have to work anymore when you've got enough cash flow coming in to cover, your needs. So I believe in building annuities, and I think the safest real estate annuity you can buy is multifamily real estate. So
that's great.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I really think that's got to be, and I just the thought that if there is, a major economic hit, that a lot of people in homes are going to be looking to downsize, and maybe that 3-bedroom place they have for $800, $900 a month, or $1,200 a month, or whatever it may be, they could go to maybe a 2-bed apartment and save quite a bit of money. And so I think there'd be more movement into apartments as opposed to out of in those kinds of economic situations. So thanks for sharing that. That's great information.
Sure. I agree. And I will tell you, rents are high right now, and I just get astounded by how high they are, and they continually go up. So, I think I really believe real estate's an incredible opportunity. I love it. And like I said, I highly recommend anyone thinking about getting into it, learn to love it, associate pleasure with it. And, it can really be an incredible vehicle for, building a retirement that is pleasurable, is sustainable, and frankly can be incredibly lucrative. So, I will tell your listeners, those of you that are thinking about doing this, immerse yourself in it. Start looking at properties, start talking to brokers, start evaluating deals. And when I talk to people, I take phone calls from people through my podcast, and I talk to people, I tell them two things. I say, I suggest a two-prong approach. You educate yourself, number one, through books or courses or whatever, so that you really learn the mechanics of it. But then, and podcasts, of course, but educate yourself. But also be out there looking at deals. Don't get caught in analysis paralysis. Even if you're not going to buy something, go look at it. Have the broker show it to you. See what you think. Do an analysis of it, a financial analysis. See if you can improve the rents or decrease the expenses, and that's how you learn. Is by actually getting out there and kicking some tires. So that's my advice to anyone listening that's thinking about getting into this business. Educate yourself, number one, by a real education, but also be looking.
Yeah, that's great advice. A lot of our listeners, they kind of fall into various groups. You have those that are approaching retirement, that are concerned and kind of putting together the numbers and saying, gee, this is going to be a struggle, or this is going to be difficult. I'm going to have to look at some other way to bring income in, because, Social Security and my pension aren't going to make it, as inflation, prices go up and so forth.
And what do you get? What do you get in the bank? You get 1%. So, don't be intimidated by this, guys. I tell you, and the things that I just defined, educating yourself and going out there and looking, they'll help you build your confidence, and you will be able to take action. And trust me, it's worth it. Okay, I mean, take that money that's in an IRA or a 401k and invest it in some real estate. And if it's in a Roth IRA, for example, you can be investing tax free, and so it's really a no brainer. And the returns, I mean, frankly, if you know anything about this business, if you can't buy a property and get yourself an 8 to 10% cash on cash return, then you're not buying right. Number one, and so it's a secure return as long as you're careful, and so don't be afraid to do that. Don't sit and suffer through your retirement when these opportunities exist in real estate. So
that's great. Yeah, one of the areas that I'm real curious to get your feedback on too is in doing this. As I approached it, I wanted to go into single family homes, and I didn't do anywhere near the volume you did, but it was sort of my seminar, quote unquote, where I learned a lot and I really realized as I started to buy duplexes and other small multis that wow, I put as much effort and all this into the duplexes, yet I'm making twice as much. And gosh, if I get a fourplex, if I go 8 units, if I go on, you just start looking at the scale, and you begin to realize that, it just makes more sense. And this is my question to you. And I know Joe Fairless, for example. And,
Sure.
And Joe's entry into this is he went out and bought 168 unit just like that.
Right. Okay. And I will say this, okay? Most people are not Joe Fairless, and the guy studied it and interviewed lots of people in the space before he did that. So I will tell you, don't do that, okay? And back to your fourplex analogy. The reality. Could you do that? Sure. If you're willing to put in the time, you're willing to study. I know other guys that have done it, gone right into big units. But you better plan to study this and learn it, and really immerse yourself in it. Like I just said, before you try to pull that off, or you will make a mistake in that sphere. But that said, those of you that, for example, are renting, even if you're approaching retirement, if you're renting, you may not realize that you can, if you're willing to go live in a fourplex or a duplex, you can get fantastic financing, FHA financing on that property, and it's very low down. So I know a lot of guys. I interviewed a guy that bought 100 plexes that way over a 10-year period by moving in them occasionally and getting great financing. So that's an option. I'm playing in the larger property space, but you don't want to do that unless you're willing to put the time in and really study this. You can't do this from your armchair. So those of you that are slowing down, partner up with someone, invest with someone that you trust, or study this and in the larger deals. I'm talking about larger deals now. Invest with someone you trust, or bite off what you can handle and your risk muscle will tolerate. And don't be afraid to start with plexes. Don't be afraid to start with a 10 unit, for example. Anybody can handle a 10 unit. That's my 2 cents on that topic.
Yeah, and I think too, there's a lot of folks out there that are already retired. They've worked a full career, and they're ready really to enjoy the retirement. They want to spend time with their kids and their grandkids, and they want to give back. And there's they really are seeking the true passive investment. And right. I don't think there'll be a lot listening to this that are interested in flipping, unless they're really looking for something to just keep them really busy. But
sure.
But I think trying to find sometimes they just need another 500, another couple thousand, on their monthly income to just make the difference, so that, hey, something happens, you need to go see a family member on the other coast, and you can hop on a plane. You're not worried about where am I going to get the money from. I can fly out there.
Exactly. And that's a duplex. That's a duplex.
Seriously.
That's a fourplex. That's all it is. One building can provide what you just described. Forget it if you do, a few more than that. And think about giving that to your kids when you're gone. What a great inherent thing to give away. Because it'll likely be paid down and really it certainly will increase in value. So, it really is a no-brainer. But take some time, listen to the podcast, learn what you can so you don't make simple mistakes. I would tell people that are interested in doing this, that have some time on their hands, go to your local RIA, go to your local real estate investment association, bump elbows with people that are doing this, and typically those are mostly house related. But you'll get a lot of practical knowledge on what to do, what not to do. You'll meet some players, and that's always a great resource as well. And you can go to meetup.com and find out where your local real estate group meets. And just about every city's got one, so you'll meet some nice people. And I go to mine, and you go to add as much value as you can, but you also go to learn, and that I would recommend that as well.
I think that's a great idea, and I really believe that helps you to not only move a little faster, but you also, if you've got a mentor, if you link up with somebody, for example, that really, maybe it's just another real estate investor, and you come in and volunteer in his or her office, periodically in exchange for guidance as you start your investing, that's worth so much, and it
absolutely
can make a world of difference.
I actually did a segment on my show about mentors and the value of mentors, and I'm really glad you brought up the point that you want to add value to them as well. It's not just a take relationship; it's a give and take relationship, and it can be a very rewarding relationship, and highly recommend it, and recommend it for someone that's never bought any real estate. Take somebody to lunch, buy them a cup of coffee, pick their brain. Most people love to give back. It's a basic human need to contribute to other people. So highly, highly recommend that.
Well, along those lines, I want to make sure before we get off here too, I want to look at that giving back aspect that you mentioned. And,
before we do that, can
sure.
I just realized, and I forgot to mention this to you ahead of the interview. I'm actually writing a book right now, and I'm willing to give it away to your listeners for free. Yeah, it's about multifamily real estate investing, soup to nuts. Now, I will tell you, I'm probably still a good 3 months out on it, but if you'd like, I'm happy to give it to your listeners for free. They can get on the list, and I can tell them how to do that if you like. It's up to you. But
yes, I think that'd be a great
yeah,
resource.
I think it'll be a great tool. All they have to do is text, what is it again? It's ROD, R-O-D, to 41411. So ROD to 41411, and I'll put you on the list. Please have patience with me. Don't you just realize like these things, they take a little longer than you anticipate, but I'm really proud of it. I think it'll be great, and it's really another way for me to give back, which is what we're about to talk about now.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you for that. Yeah,
My pleasure.
I had a previous broadcast where I talked about sort of the 4 things to do. One of them, education; another, mentor; another, put together a plan; and then the biggest one, which many of us just drop on, and that's just take action and move forward. And by providing information like this book that you have available, I think it brings in that valuable educational component. And we can get hung up, just on the educational side for years if we allow it. But we got to realize you got to get to the other steps to really make it happen. So
sure, and there's no outcome there. It's a journey, and it never ends. My kids ask me, why are you going to real estate seminars? I just went to one 4 months ago. He's like, why are you going? I mean, you could teach the stuff. I say, because there's always something to learn, and so it's a lifelong thing, and it should be for everybody listening. If you learn, and that's why you have to love it, because if you love it, then the learning is pleasurable.
That's a great point. Great point, Rod.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, let's talk a little bit about the giving back aspect and why you were motivated to set up your own nonprofit.
Well, thank you. I'm a big Tony Robbins fan. For those, some of your listeners may not know who that is, but he's a real self-improvement, self-actualization guy. And I started seeing his technology about 16 years ago, and I actually now kind of help in his environment. I was just at the event in Dallas a while back, but I learned from him about giving back, and I have to be honest with you. I was fairly narcissistic before I met him, and I'm embarrassed to admit that, but it was really me, and focus on success and money and everything else, and it really wasn't a giving back mindset. And then I saw some of the things that he's done and does, and now it's become a huge part of my life. So I mirrored something he does called a basket brigade, and I went out and I picked 5 families, my brother and I, and we for Thanksgiving, and we bought a ton of food, turkeys, and we called a church and found 5 very needy families, and I delivered the baskets. He and I delivered the baskets to those families. And one of the families, and the reason that I got hooked was one of the families they were in a shotgun house. And for those of you, I don't know, you may not know what that is, but it's a house where it was actually like a duplex. And you walk up to the door and you walk in the living room, you walk through the bedroom to get to the kitchen, which has the bathroom off it. It's like a straight shotgun. And there was this lady in there with 5 kids. And the lady came out and saw the food and started crying. Then her 5 kids came out and they all started crying. And so I was hooked. And I did 50 the next year, 100 the year after that, 200 the year after that, 400 and 800 and 1,600. I doubled it all the way to 1,600. And I paid for it myself up to that point. And then '08 hit and I got my butt handed to me. And so I formed the Tiny Hands Foundation and started taking donations. But we have fed 40,000 kids in the last 16 years for Christmas and or Thanksgiving. And we also, a couple years ago, started doing backpacks. We have a backpack brigade where we do backpacks filled with school supplies. And that's just coming up for us on August 6th. And we've done thousands of backpacks. We're going to do, I think, 1,500 or more than 1,500 on August 6th here in the Sarasota, Bradenton area. And then also we do what's called a teddy bear brigade, where we've donated thousands of teddy bears to the local police departments for the officer to put in their vehicles when they encounter a child that's experienced a traumatic event of some sort, to help bridge the gap with that officer and provide comfort to that child. So really very, very dear to my heart, and I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk about it. And it's if anybody wants to look at it, it's tinyhandsfoundation.org, and very proud of it. And I recommend to anybody listening, incorporate contribution into your life, even if it's as simple as a smile that you decide to give someone a day, or talking to an elderly person in an old folks home, or anything that you're capable of doing. You know, you hear the old cliche that you get back tenfold. Well, it's not a cliche, it's fact. What you give back, you get back tenfold. And so I highly recommend everybody listening to incorporate it into their lives. And I was very impressed, Bill, to see, you lived it. You were a missionary in Haiti, I believe?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, we're of the same cloth there. I'm really appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk about my experience with it.
Well, I think it's really important. And, I from a personal standpoint, feel it's a biblical mandate. But at the same time, I always found it's funny, even when we went to Haiti, we went with the mindset, we just wanted to bless, these kids, these street kids that we were working with and so forth. And, we came away from it more blessed by them.
Oh, sure.
than what,
sure.
I think you always get more back from that experience than you think you're going to be giving. It's pretty amazing stuff.
Well, it's funny. It's that. And I will tell you, and you know what, I'm going to leave it at that. I'll tell you. Basically, there have been years that I was like, how am I going to pay for this? And it always comes through, and then it always feels like that I've been rewarded, and that's not the reason I did it. But I will tell you, it comes back many, many ways. And so, those of you that haven't incorporated it into your life yet, I encourage you to do that. It'll be the most rewarding thing you've ever done, by far.
I agree too. Well, we're coming to approaching the end of our interview, and it's a shame because there's so many things I want to ask you. Maybe I can get you to agree to maybe another broadcast somewhere down the road.
No, I would definitely do that for you, Bill. I've really enjoyed this. I've enjoyed the opportunity to add any value that I can to your listeners, and I'm happy to maybe do a more topic-based content, about a particular topic that you feel like your listeners could use at any time. So don't hesitate to ask.
Oh, well, I appreciate it, Rod.
Yeah.
Well, we have this little section at the end here. We call it our Wrap It Up section. And what I do is ask you a series of real quick questions, and you respond hopefully as quick as you can.
Okay.
And then after that, we'll let folks know how they can reach you and close out the show. But let me just go ahead and let's wrap it up.
Okay.
Favorite real estate book?
Definitely Make It Big by Frank McKinney, the guy I was talking about that built 10 homes for 10,000 people in Haiti. It's an older book, unbelievable book about life, about real estate, about your mission. Fantastic book.
Love it. Favorite business book?
Oh boy, I could Think and Grow Rich. That's more personal. Make It Good to Great. Good to great.
All right. I'll put them both down. That's great.
Yeah.
Most valuable website used for success other than your own?
Oh, wow. I wasn't ready for these questions. Valuable website. I get a lot of value out of LoopNet, honestly. I have a premium listing with them, and I get a lot of value on a whole bunch of different fronts from them, so I'd say that.
Yeah, and I'll second that. I won't make this about me, but last property I bought, I actually did find through LoopNet, and so it does work. How about favorite app? If I might ask.
I don't honestly. I am a technological midget. I favorite. Oh God, can I defer?
Yeah.
I really. Oh, you know what? I've got an app that opens the gates on my house, and I'm just looking at my phone right now, trying to find. There's nothing really here that I will tell you though. What I've heard about the Starbucks app is very impressive, where it geolocates you and actually will have your order ready when you're on the way there. But I have not used that function, but that one has impressed me. But the capabilities of Starbucks app.
Oh, I love it. Some people say Netflix. Some people say different.
Sure.
I think my favorite one so far, someone actually there's a one that you have that you push a button and it sounds like like a hotel bell at the front desk. So if you go into a place and there's nobody there, you just hit your
that's
phone
funny.
and it goes ding ding.
That's funny.
I love that. Okay, so last question. If you had to start all over, knowing what you know, let's say just something catastrophic happened, heaven forbid, but and you just your business is wiped out. But you got the knowledge still. And you do have a little cash. You have $1,000 in the bank. What would you do to relaunch your real estate business?
I can tell you that I've basically lived that. Not to that extreme, but I've lived that. And what I would do is I would build up my confidence again immediately. And I would immerse myself in the business again. I would start buying and I'd go for it. I would not let the losses impact future decision making, and believe me, I've lived that. So, it's very easy. It's very easy to get caught up in the fear and the and focusing with looking in a rearview mirror. But you never get past it. And the people that are successful are the ones that have fallen on their faces and jumped back up and done it again. And it's easier the second and the third and the fourth time. And I call them, like I say, I call them seminars. Some have been extremely expensive seminars, but you get up and you dust yourself off and you move on.
So that 1,000, it's not.
What would I do? What would I do with the 1,000? You don't need money to buy property. Okay, you don't need money to buy property. So how I would use that 1,000, I'd probably keep it as operating capital, and I'd find a partner. And I bought 500 houses with partners in Denver. I ended up buying them all out, but I would find a partner and start and be able to influence and congruently show them value and start buying property again.
I love it. And I love hearing from people that say it is possible to get money, to get property without having money in your pocket.
Oh, absolutely. You can close and get money back at closing, but you need the knowledge and the congruency and the ability to influence, okay? And you can only do that by having the confidence and the education.
Great. How can people get a hold of you, Rod?
Well,
I'm sure there's
obviously
probably a lot that want to connect with you.
Certainly they're welcome to email me directly. I'm not too busy to respond to emails. Rod at rodkhleif.com. That's Rod at RODKHLEIF as in Frank.com. And, if they go to my podcast, or they can go to lifetimecashflowpodcast.com and schedule calls with me. I give free 30-minute calls, and there's no agenda. I'm not selling anything. So, happy to answer questions and help in any way that I can. And, I get a lot out of giving back and helping other people. So don't hesitate to reach out if you want to.
Great. Well, Rod, this has been great. It went way too fast, but still, I think there's just a ton of great information in there, and everything that you've mentioned, including the text to get your book, that'll all be in our show notes, so people can don't feel if you're driving or you're jogging somewhere and you can't write things down. Everything will be in the show notes, so no problem there, including how to contact Rod. So, and we only have one last thing to do, and again, if you read your notes I sent to you, you would know.
Yeah, that's a good one. I actually practiced yesterday. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Ho, ho, ho! How's that?
All right. That was good. That was good. In Florida, the dogs sound a little differently here.
Yeah, that was a dead. That was a hurting animal right there. Is what that was.
I love it.
Oh man.
Oh man. Well, thank you so much, Rod. I can't thank you enough. And
My pleasure, Bill. Keep up the good work, buddy.
Oh, and likewise. Really excited to just kind of hear what you're doing, and I love listening to your podcast, one of my favorites, and I encourage others to do the same. And just to stay tuned in what you're doing with the Little Hands Foundation. I think that's just a great thing, and especially like what you're doing with the police officers too, in light of the things that have happened recently.
Oh no question.
These guys that just put their lives on the line for us every day. You don't realize it, but they do a lot of other things besides pull people
no
over.
question.
They're and just the fact that you've tied that into your charitable organization is just something to be acknowledged and recognized there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Rod, and everybody listening. Again, make sure that you check out the show notes. You'll get more information and some of these and a recap of what Rod spoke about today. And thanks for listening, and keep moving forward, all you that are listening and have taken the time to listen today. We thank you for that, and have a great day, and God bless.
Thank you very much for visiting the Old Dogs REI Network. We would greatly appreciate if you would stop by iTunes and let us know what you think of the show. We would love if you could subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. The more ratings and reviews we receive, the more visible the podcast will be to others. Thank you.